Assalamu alaikum and Eid Mubarak. This is your host Fatma Shaheen for a special transmission on Eid ul-Azha. As we all know, it's Eid ul-Azha today and we will be hosting a very interesting, rather a very dedicated special transmission on this very auspicious occasion from PTV World Lahore Center today. This transmission will particularly be dedicated to bringing you some laughter, some fun, some intelligent conversation, and of course, some very important information too. Now, without wasting more time, let me introduce you to my today's extremely dynamic panel. My first panelist for the show today is Alia Aftab, who's a psychologist. She's also a former MPA. Assalamu alaikum, Alia, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Fatma, and Eid Mubarak to you.
Eid Mubarak to you too. My second panelist for the show today is Aini Shuaib, who's an accomplished fashion designer. Assalamu alaikum, Aini, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me, and Eid Mubarak to everyone.
My third panelist for the show today is Dr. Rizwan Nasir Saab, who's the DG of Rescue 1122. Assalamu alaikum ji, and welcome to the show.
Alaikum assalam. Thank you and Eid Mubarak.
And my fourth panelist for special transmission of today is Sheikh Jahangir Saab, who's an Islamic scholar. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for calling me to the show, and Eid Mubarak to everyone.
Now, to get the conversation started with you, Alia, I think at a very basic level, we need to talk about Eid, especially the way it has changed for us, more so in this COVID-19 pandemic. You know, it has been very different in ways more than one strange too. So tell us that, you know, how did Eid and Eid celebrations change for you particularly when it comes to, you know, having the routine festivities? Because we now know that, you know, considering that we are living in a pandemic and considering, of course, that, you know, the cases are on a surging rise again too, the way we celebrate Eid, that has changed.
For me, I think it's become more simple now because it used to be a little extravagant. We used to go to family and lots of we used to concentrate more on the meal, more on the food, because Eid al-Azha is more about sacrifice and more about basically eating rather than Eid al-Fitr. Eid al-Fitr we do, for children it's the same.
Of course.
They get gifts.
Yeah,
so
but I think for adults also it's the same, because you know, it might have that element of sacrifice, but I think for us women it's also about looking good, feeling good, and then of course putting your best foot forward that
I
way.
think, well, it's the same, but for me obviously, because we have to have clothes prepared, it's very important for us to look nice, because that's what females are supposed to do.
Right.
But for children also, they are excited that Eid is coming, whether it's Eid al-Azha, Eid al-Fitr. For them it's Eid. So they feel more excited and they come and they say, what Eid are we getting? What are we? And when animals come, when we buy animals for sacrifice, I remember my little nephew is 5 years old. So he was asking me that, Khala, when is the goat coming? I want to be friendly with the goat. I want to give grass to the goat. I want to have a ride with the goat.
Right.
But you see, during the pandemic, it was like just the immediate family.
Of course. And then we also had these services, you know, where basically meat was getting delivered online to our houses.
Yes,
so I think somewhere we lost that connection.
We lost the connection, and during COVID days, we didn't offer sacrifice at home even.
Right.
We just gave the money and told them to
but
do.
Slowly and gradually we are getting out of it. Of course, although we can't ignore the fact that, you know, the pandemic is again, the cases are surging again,
Well,
as we
alhamdulillah, I think we have learned to live with the pandemic.
Yes.
Let's put it like that.
Right, Alia, on which I'll come to you. So I think she's raised some very valid points on which I would want you to deliberate further. When we talk about, you know, Bakra Eid, of course, we all understand the fact that this Eid is about sacrifice. But with sacrifice, we also understand the fact that, you know, this Eid comes with a notion of teaching us Muslims to be more compassionate, to be more kind, more charitable. So what do you feel are the best virtues that it teaches us, you know, and things that we should actually pick up?
It's about both the individual and the community.
Right.
So it has a different meaning for the individual as a human being, as a person, and how it makes you a better person when you involve in sacrifice. But when we talk about the community, it's not just the sacrifice, it's about the sharing of the sacrifice.
Right.
It's about sharing the meat, sharing your time, sharing your love, and whatever blessings that you have. And the third and most important thing that today people who have not done this on Eid day should remember is also bonding.
Right.
It's a time when we bond with our relatives, with our friends and family. So I think it's a very beautiful day to celebrate in all these ways.
Right, sir, your point is noted. On which I'll come to you, sir. I think the kind of work that you're doing, we're all a very big fan of that, in the sense that, you know, of course, you've managed to, you know, successfully run this largest humanitarian service that we do have in Punjab in today, basically. And of course, we understand that it's also extending to other provinces. But when we talk about, you know, starting up with this thing, considering that, you know, emergency management has been very neglected in Pakistan. So how did this initiative come about?
You see, as a doctor, when I used to see these patients coming to us, nobody was ready to pick them because of a medical legal case. There were no professionals trained who would go and help them at the site. And you can imagine you had no number where you could dial and somebody would come and help you. So it was frightening, and when I used to see 911 in the US, 999 in UK, and all of these numbers, I used to wonder why we can't establish this system. So we tried several years of efforts, and I was doing this more as a social work, and everybody said, Dr. Sahab, you're talking about Pakistan, it can't be done over here. So it was like a mission impossible. Everybody would say, no way. And so that's where we actually took a start. And initially we did the reforms trying to revamp the civil defense in the Ministry of Interior, Government of Pakistan. I wish those reforms had been implemented. We had finalized everything. Half of the people could have been saved in the earthquake.
Oh God.
So one regret that I would have in my life had those been implemented. But anyways, we came back. So Punjab, Lahore, the historic city.
Of course.
So finally the government of Punjab said, either stop giving us suggestions, or so it started as an ambulance service. So I said, let's start an ambulance service. And we started as an ambulance service, and with only 14 ambulances initially in 2004. Today we have an infrastructure not just in Punjab, all tehsils level, it has been expanded. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Gilgit-Baltistan, and now Sindh and Balochistan is also in the process of
Sindh very recently, I understand.
Yeah, and we've almost, they're in the process of doing it right now on a pilot basis. So today we've rescued over 10 million people with an average response time of 7 minutes. And with our motorbike rescue service in the congested cities, we've rescued 1 million people, and we've maintained an average response time 4 minutes, which is an achievement even internationally. So somebody said that it can't be done.
And
God has been kind, that Allah Ta'ala has been kind, that we've been able to not just establish a system, but a world-class system. And we also became the first team in search and rescue. After the earthquake, we started the efforts to train our team. The first team to get UN INSARAG, United Nations INSARAG certification in South Asia.
That's amazing, because I think that is also something which has added to your success, because internationally you've gotten that certification too. But I think one very important question which arises from this is that you are ideally accessing those places which you can through road. But what about those far-flung areas where you can't get to, but where we do see disasters occurring?
Yeah. The challenge was going into the walled city area, where it's a very interesting thing that, you've got such a narrow place that if a male and female is crossing, they say that, what's going to happen when they are crossing. So that's always, so it's a very congested area. So there we started the motorbike rescue service. So 1 million people have been rescued over.
And what about helicopters?
One about going out to the villages. Obviously, the number of emergencies and the population over there is less and it's more scattered. So there's where we established community emergency response teams. So I'll request everybody sitting here, as well as those watching the TV, go to our site. It's called Rescue Cadet Corps. So you can get hands-on training. So instead of wasting your time and calling, and I'll especially address the females, especially you're calling us in the morning, that instead of doing that, go on your phone, see those videos. It's a very small video that will give you a basic training of how to save lives. So in case you have an emergency, then for the hands-on training, you can go to the nearest rescue station, which is now in every tehsil in town. So you can go there and get hands-on training.
I think we'll get a detailed view on that. But before that, I'll come to you, Annie. I think we must talk about, Eid, how fashionable it is for everybody, most of our women out there. So when we talk about fashion, we've also seen that fashion at the end of the day is also very subjective. But when we talk about Eid, when we talk about fashion, more so in the context of COVID-19, what do you feel have been the yeas and nays of dressing up?
I think people have, after COVID pandemic, have changed a bit, because the life was very casual, relaxed, always in your lounge, just relaxing. Nobody's visiting, or you're not going anywhere else. But I think after pandemic, since we are humans and we forget everything very quickly, the people are back to life, alhamdulillah, which is a very good sign. And celebrating Eid, our designers are contributing a lot to that. They are making like extravagant lawn suits and everything, and which is the best part, I'm liking it, that finally our designers, they thought of it, that they are not catering to some community, they have to cater the masses.
So Annie, I think you must also tell people out there that when we talk about sustainable fashion, when we talk about looking good, but of course everybody is on a budgetary constraint, how precisely can you do that? Because when I look at people, I have always believed that fashion at the end of the day is a lifestyle, it's a choice. You don't need to spend on very expensive clothes to look good. So how do you advise women to look good on Eid, of course, because it's a special occasion, and not spend that much?
I think fashion is all about being comfortable in your own skin.
Right.
And what you're like, you can just flaunt it with confidence. So you can always go for a lower budget kind of attire also, and obviously high end also. But if you're not confident and classy, then you can't pull up any kind of a thing. And I think where there is a certain kind of designs which you can stand out, I think people have become quite well aware thanks to our social media, Instagram and every that kind of things, that they have become very well aware about themselves. They know what they have to wear according to their bodies and their figures and their heights.
Right. You wanted to add something to that?
Yeah, I wanted to add, you see, fashion is all about, like Annie said, it's about your own styles, your lifestyle, your thought. It's basically your thought.
Right.
So what I do is sometimes, like, I have not too old clothes, but you know, girls, women, they like to wear clothes once or twice and then they like to change it.
Right.
Because they think that, okay, it's enough. So what I do is I take patterns, like I had a shirt and I said, okay, I've worn it quite a few times. I took the pattern and I just took something new and I interacted with it, played around with it.
Right. And I think at the end of the day, like she very rightly so mentioned, that it is of course about the mindset that you have, the way you carry clothes. But sir, I think a very interesting question which emanates from what, you know, both the ladies are saying, that generally of course we all have this social pressure on us, especially women, to, you know, look good and go and buy new clothes on Eid. But when we talk about it from a religious perspective, you know, what importance does our religion, what importance does Islam place on, you know, looking good and wearing new clothes on the occasion of Eid?
The most important thing is that people try to impose others on others, that they ought to not spend money or not be happy perhaps, or somehow being happy is irreligious in some way. And I think that being happy and the desire to be happy and have pleasure is as natural as eating and breathing. All we would like to add to that is to share that happiness with those around you.
Right.
And especially those who cannot for some reason enjoy that, they have lost someone.
Right.
It's not just about giving people money or sharing your food or clothes, but there might be somebody who recently lost someone they love.
You could be nice to them,
And you
just be
could
kind.
spend some time with them. There are old age homes you could go to.
Right.
And I would love to go to Dr. Saab's place on Eid day and salute those young men and women who are on duty on that day.
I was just about to ask you that, sir, because you know Eid is so important for everybody, and in our Pakistani culture, I think a very important part of it is to spend it with your family members.
Yes.
So I think hats off to the people who are working at Rescue 1122. They don't get the opportunity to do that because they are serving us, the nation. So how do you take care of that? Because you know, one way or the other, it would be affecting their motivation because it's Eid and it's supposed to be special, it's supposed to be, you know, your family time.
Yeah, I think that's where a person with a commitment has to come in, where you know that you're going to be serving people, and if you take off, people will be, there's nobody to help them.
Right.
So that's where obviously they sacrifice, and we are there just a call away.
Right,
And their families obviously do have a lot of families understand that this is part of their duty and they have to go. So, but they do it. And the most interesting part when this is, especially this Eid, is most interesting because then with the kind of emergencies that we receive, you know, suddenly a bull has gone wild.
Right.
So it's running, the people are chasing, so either he hits somebody or
and then
the
you're
bull.
rescuing animals.
And then the interesting part is if they're trying to sacrifice a bull, now bull is, and the way and somebody is not doing it properly, oh, the bull will just, you know, the way it shakes his legs or body, throw somebody there or somebody, you know, so it's so.
So how do you train your rescuers to look after such, you know, novel kind of situations? Because it must be very difficult.
Yeah, so that's where the rescue techniques and others come in. So it's a very hard training process. They have to go through for a 6 months, very rigorous training process. So that's where the rescue, if a bull or something has gone in, or even animals go into a well or a drain, getting them out is a challenge, and especially controlling them and then getting them out.
I've also heard cases where people actually, butchers, when they've been actually slaughtering, they've also gotten hurt. So we've so many, and road accidents are so common, sir.
If you're doing it, you know, a bull or a camel, it's not easy. If you're not good in your techniques, you can get hurt really bad. So that's something which is where you have to be very careful that how you actually
So I think on Eid holidays, it would be safe to say that, you know, there's more pressure on Rescue 112.
Yes, I would say 2 or 3 things. Number one, be careful when you're sacrificing animals and you follow the right procedures. And if you're not well trained, try to be, you know, do it properly. Second is, whenever you eat, remember one thing, what our Holy Prophet ﷺ or may peace be upon him, said that whenever you eat, leave a little bit of room, so that don't try to overeat as if you're never going to get the meat again, and end up with a lot of heartburn. And
then you have to rush to the
and then you have to
hospital.
rush, and you're thinking, I'm getting a heart attack, you'll calling rescue, and we are rushing you to the hospital. Please don't do that. This meat, you can eat the meat, but don't overeat, don't overdo.
Right, I think that's some very good
advice. So that's
advice.
something which is very important, and be careful in terms of, obviously you can have gout, and because of overeating, and others you'll have an heartburn or gastric irritation. So all of these things you have to be careful whenever you, and of course, and if you've got open roads, don't drive rashly. Just be careful in terms of driving.
This is exactly
and
what I
don't
was
try to
putting
rush,
to you.
because that's something which is very important, because if you feel the last moment you have to get back and you get onto an unsafe vehicle or an unsafe transport just to go and just to come back, then obviously when they're going towards their and when they're now coming back, they'll be coming back. So that's always a challenge. So the most of the road traffic crashes would take place at that time.
Right. This is exactly what I was reading, because the statistics were so strange that, you know, during Eid, the road accidents, they actually kind of multiply that.
1,000 road traffic crashes we manage every day. So every 1.6 minutes. So the likely, and about 80% of them involve motorbikes.
So you wanted to add something?
I would like to spend some at least time of my Eid, and I would ask everybody watching today to go to the rescue centers and share some time with them, share a cup of tea with them, take along some sweets, take along some food, and to make them understand that we do realize and we empathize with what you're doing. That would be a good idea for the community to go.
But I'm sure people must be coming in, Doctor, because it is quite
There are, but I
reputable.
think, yes, he's absolutely right, and that gives us the true motivation. When we save a life, I think that's the biggest motivation that we have. Because once you save somebody's life, and so, you know, I just can't explain as a doctor.
Of course, I understand.
When
You've
do
dedicated
that,
your whole life, that speaks
so
for itself.
That's something which is something. I remember a case, very interesting case. It was somebody, I think it was around, it must have been just before Eid, and then the way his son used to be somewhere outside, I think in Germany or somewhere in Europe. And his father was going out on a walk, and he got hit by a vehicle. So the rescue responded. So without insofar as he was picked up from he was taken to the hospital, the treatment was started and everything, as he survived. So when he came back and listened to this entire thing, he just couldn't believe it, that this is what had happened. So I remember for the next year, so it had happened on, I think it was either a Thursday or a Friday, and every Thursday, Friday, he used to send a cake to that station.
That's so sweet. Of course, you saved his father's life at the end of the day, basically.
So those are where you have all of these incidents where you feel happy and you feel more satisfied. I think that's our biggest satisfaction that we have in saving lives.
You were able to help someone, rescue someone, put them back to normal track of life. That's a big blessing.
But sometimes I'd just like to add one thing over here as well, which is very interesting. And you said rescue 1122. This is basically an emergency service.
Right.
So I was in one of the areas in the north in KP. So I was just stopped there. I asked one of my district officers, how is the service going? So he said, sir, we had a very interesting case. So I said, what happened? He said that a couple of days back there was an emergency, and so they said that, so he said, I had an emergency. He said, why didn't you call 1122? He said, oh yes, it is a very good service, but I don't know their number.
Oh my God. But you'd also have the mobile application. I think for the clarification of the audience, sir, since you have raised this, you must tell them that you
1122 is a
also
number,
have,
it's an emergency service, and
you
that's the
also
number.
have a mobile app which they can very easily install in their phones.
Yes, I
and
think
call.
everybody should install that.
Everybody should install it.
So we respond
It's
to
so
all
convenient.
emergencies.
I have it in my phone, yes.
So it's whether it's an ambulance, whether it's a medical emergency, whether it's an accident, whether it's a fire, whether it's even an animal rescue, we go out and help people, because who else is going to do that? It was very easy for us to say, we just do this, we're not going to do this. But then we saw people lying helplessly in case of fire incidents. There was no system. So we took on that challenge. And so today we've responded to over 192,000 fire incidents. And just by improving response time and professional firefighting, we've saved losses worth over 550 billion rupees.
That's quite.
But at the same time, I'd like to say,
and you're planning to expand, basically.
A request to the people, especially now, we're encouraging more and more high-rise buildings to come up. You're spending a lot of money. Please design your staircases in a proper way so that people can leave if there is an emergency. If there is a fire on this floor and somebody has to leave from the upper floor, they should be able to leave. So put an exit doors, put in basic alarms and sprinkler system that will save your lives.
Sir, I think these preventive measures are something that we will talk about, but I'll come to you, Annie. I think we must talk about this when we talk about, getting dressed, and, Eid, of course, we understand is dedicated to looking good too that way. I think a lot of times I see women raising this concern on Eid that, are we dressing up appropriately as per our age? More so, I think women who are in their middle age, or, who are maybe 40 or 50 plus, because they always feel that, maybe they are overdressed. So as a fashion designer, when you look at this and, when you talk about dressing up on Eid, do you feel that, dressing up appropriately is something which should be a concern for women out there, or you feel that, age is just a number when it comes to fashion?
Yeah, when I think about myself or anybody, that for me, age is just a number. Because when we say like 40...
Only with regards to dressing up or otherwise?
No, I think both ways. Because I think 40 is the new 30 and 50 is the new 40.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that if a 50-year-old woman start dressing up like a teenager, it's not even that case. So, but obviously you can, but if your body is like okay with that, like you can dress up whatever you feel like, whatever, again,
and I think it's all about the way you carry stuff.
Yeah.
You need to
Whatever
look comfortable in it.
Yeah.
You need to feel comfortable, and that's the vibe that you need to give out. But Ali, I think we must also talk about Eid changing over a period of time, more so with, of course, the boom of social media, because now I feel, at least for the young people out there, it's more about, posting the right kind of pictures, giving the right kind of Instagram stories, and, making all those, getting likes, and basically rather than focusing on the spirit of Eid. So has this been, a positive development in our society if you look at it?
No, I don't think so. It's a positive, but it has been there since a long time.
Right.
It's a rat race, you can say. But there are not all sorts of people who are like this. There are people who are different even. And I think since the pandemic, we have changed. Now, this is the first time that I think we are celebrating Eid after 2 years, almost 2 years. Though cases are rising, but they're still not the same as they were earlier.
Right.
So this is a blessing, I think. And now I think we need to learn how to cope with it. We need to take our precautions. But still the thing is that it's the flavor of Eid, it's the zest of Eid, and it's Eid. And for us, it's a very thing of celebration, and it has come after 2 years. So I think everybody is like celebrating with a zest, with a purpose in life. So when we talk about social media has its good points and social media has its bad points.
Right, Ali. I think we must also talk about, the positive impact that social media has had in this regard, more so for designers like yourself, because I think if you observe the Instagram trends and, all the social media forum trends, it's easier for you then to actually forecast, the needs and the wants of your consumers too, because everything is so transparent now.
Yeah, and I consider Instagram is like a newspaper now. And after pandemic, people are so much comfortably using Instagram for their orders, for online shopping. And I think it's a very good media to promote your branding and everything. And people have started all that influencers, giving their clothes to the right people, and then they're flaunting it. And I think it's a very good idea to promote your stuff. But Instagram online shopping has one pros and cons, obviously.
Of course, everything has a pros and cons.
That people your DMs are loaded with price please, and then they start negotiating because nobody's there right in front of you, but it's very easy to bully you.
And I think this is so rampant on Eid. A lot of people do that because they're expecting that all the designers, they are for some reason or the other giving them good bargain skills, whether they are giving or not.
The price is too much.
Basically,
what is this? This is so
Eid, we should get a discount. I've heard so many people basically say that. Sir, I'll come to you. I think we must also talk about Eid generically, because when we talk about Eid, we all understand that throughout the Muslim world, Eid is observed in a certain traditional manner. But when we talk about different Muslim countries, we also understand the fact that the way it might be celebrated in Turkey might not be the way it's celebrated in Pakistan. So considering that you are so well traveled yourself, what is it that you like about celebrating Eid the most here in Pakistan?
I think that Pakistan is one of the few countries left in which we still have very strong family bonds.
Right.
I grew up spending all these occasions in my grandparents' house because the whole family would be there. Even now, I think we have standard days in our family. The first day lunch is at my house, second day lunch is at my brother's house, the third day is my sister's house. So I think this is something very special. It happens in many other Muslim countries and it happens in many other places. But I still think this is one tradition that we need to really carry forward with our children, and no phones.
No phones, yes. This is exactly why I posed this social media question to her, because I think you've lived through all these eras, so you're in a better position possibly to, tell us that when we talk about, celebrating Eid in a traditional manner, and of course now it's very, I personally feel it's more commercial now, and I think Annie, you would agree with me on this, with all these, trend of us getting PR giveaways and, just wearing somebody's clothes to endorse them, no matter how they are, basically at the end of the day, all these influencers.
Yeah, I think
basically.
Psychologically it's more pressure on the people now, because they have to post
because you have to look good,
and
you have to look a certain way.
Yes, and all branded up, and have to buy some specific brand clothes, and so that you can post it on your Instagram.
But sir, coming to, I think we must also talk about, Eid being, the way it has changed, something which sir also highlighted, what he particularly likes about celebrating Eid in Pakistan. How do you see, our festivities changing over a period of time? Because I think then you again would be in a better position to comment on that, Eid as we traditionally celebrated it to Eid what it is now.
Almost 2 years have virtually been a nightmare, because the Eid, I remember when the pandemic started, it was Eid, and suddenly that increased the number of cases to a big number, and that posed a challenge. And at that time, even people were afraid to go near their dear ones if they found out somebody had COVID, and so we had to go. We had rescued almost 23,000 such people who had been either positive cases or the others, and even the families were afraid to go near them, and even 4,000 cases of burials when they passed. Now the families were afraid to even come near them. They would even when the burial things were taking place, they used to give them a decent burial was even a challenge. The families would be standing away from them, and then but now suddenly when we're back, we've learned to live with the pandemic. I think that's a change which has taken place.
Right.
But again, I'll still request everybody to be careful, to celebrate Eid, do try to remember the ones who cannot celebrate, because what has happened after this, the world over, the way the inflation has taken place, a lot of people can't afford this. So especially in this Eid, don't forget them.
Right. And I think something
do with them.
Sir
And when we started receiving the calls, even when we had the COVID helpline, even at that time started people calling us, we won't die because of COVID, but we will die because of hunger, because
of
I used to have 3 vehicles, and today everything is standstill. My family can't afford it. I saw people standing outside the stations. A lot of people had given us food to distribute, so we asked people to come over to the station, and they were pretty, decent people. I said, what happened? I said, we had businesses. They're all shut down. We don't have money now. On this Eid especially, and try to remember those families which can't because of what has happened, globally what we see an inflation taking place.
Right, so, and I think in that way, countries like Pakistan, they need more attention, of course, because they are developing that way. Coming towards you, and to wrap up this segment, when we talk about the vulnerable segment, something which I think earlier both the panelists also pointed out, I think we must also talk about Muslims, all over the world, to, Muslims who are celebrating Eid. So what would your message be to all those Muslims out there on this auspicious occasion?
See, my message would be to be with them. If they can't be physically with them, they can send some gifts. Just association is also good. Like I remember 2 Eids of mine I spent with the Fountain House patients, because it's very near to my heart, being my profession even. And I remember the day I went there, one was Choti Eid and one was Badi Eid. I wasn't dressed up. They put mehndi on my hand, and they were so good. They were so nice with me. They offered me food, and they said, you are here to celebrate Eid with us. They're very vulnerable people of society. So just empathize with them, be with them, and empathizing with them doesn't mean to just go there and spend time with them. Like both our panelists said about different ways, like going and celebrating with 11122. Just send something for them if they need something.
The big change which did take place, and I'm sure Jangisa would add to that, that earlier even in Saudi Arabia, when they used to do the entire sacrifice, and they used to either burn the meat, and others today they pack it all and they send it to all these countries where it is really required. So I think that's a change that we see even from UAE and others. I remember.
And perhaps you can make your contribution to that.
So you see, make your contribution.
You can make your online. It's so easy to do that at the end of the day.
It's very easy to do that.
Right. I think, Annie, I would want you to comment on the fact that when we talk about Eid, when we talk about fashion, so overall, if you were to look at these 2 years as they have passed, I think the general notion would have been that you're saying goodbye to fast fashion, but you're saying yes to slow fashion. So how do you see the rest of year 2022 in terms of evolving fashion trend?
As fashion has evolved a lot in past 2 years, people went to their comfort zone, and then they forgot about the pandemics after the vaccinations and everything. Then we get to live with it. We actually learned how to live with it. So now we are very like easy and comfortable in our own zones, and we are back at it. Now I was just traveling like 2 weeks back. So I was just sitting at the coffee shop and I was just looking at people in the mall. Like there was different kind of people from different regions, different countries, and you can exactly tell from where the certain person belongs to and where the other person, because of the way we dress up.
So what fashion advice would you give to all the people who are watching the show? More so, you know, given the fact that we are celebrating this Eid, we are coming out of the pandemic and the cases again have been on a surging high. So what are the do's and what are the don'ts that they need to follow?
Do's are just be slow on everything, just take it easy, as the Dr. Saab said, just be kind to yourself also and towards others.
And towards others too, basically. So coming towards you, I think we must talk about Eid, especially with regards to, you know, the message, the teachings it gives us, and more so I think the younger generation. So when we talk about, you know, the lessons that we need to learn at the end of the day, what are the most important things do you feel we need to pick more so as young people when it comes to, you know, actually observing the true essence of Eid and not just celebrating it in terms of festivities?
Have compassion for those who are around you. Don't take them for granted. Your parents won't be there forever. Your brothers and sisters will move away eventually. You know, your friends won't be there. And most importantly, people you don't know, like Dr. Saab said, people you don't know, they are far more, I believe, deserving, because you spend time with your family anyway throughout the year. Let's make this Eid about spending time with those who serve us, who protect us, and those who perhaps need us more than our own even.
Right, so your point is noted, on which I'll come to you, Dr. Saab, and to conclude today's segment. So what would your Eid safety tips be more so to the women out there who are celebrating Eid, who are cooking as well, and of course that makes them more vulnerable to being, you know, unfortunately part of any kind of accident. So what are the tips that you would want to give to all the women out there, more so in keeping themselves, you know, safe?
The most important, the ones who are cooking. And if you're wearing all such reshmi clothes and key clothes, you have to be careful.
No, we don't cook with such clothes
Don't go near the, no, but you can go to the, just to get something to the kitchen or somewhere. And if there is a fire nearby and you can't watch, we used to get a case of one burn case every day. So you have to be very careful, and the moment this clothes catch fire, obviously that's a distant thing. And in case, God forbid, there is a fire, don't run, because the moment you start running, it gets more air and it further. So all that you need to do is take something and just wrap around, so that, or just lie down and roll, so that at least you can extinguish that fire. The second most important thing on this Eid, the challenge that we face, is people who tend to overeat.
Right, and
they
then
eat as much meat as they can, and then they call in a desperate way, I'm getting a heart attack. So please don't give yourself a heart attack. Save, you'll get plenty of opportunities to eat meat. Don't eat so much of meat that you end up in hospitals, and then you have, so please do eat. Eat as much as that you can digest, and leave some room in the end, so that you don't go to the hospital.
And also let Rescue 112 to basically celebrate.
Yes, and I especially
don't make it difficult for them.
And I especially in the end, I'll say also, since you've been mentioning so much about the females, I just like to, you know, saying that please do call us in case of an emergency, but do not call us otherwise. If your heart is on fire, for that you can call any other number, but don't call us. This is an emergency number. Respect
this is a waste of public resources.
Yes, I think that's something which is very important, because keeping
I'm very glad that you clarified this.
Keeping the number busy. So either you're getting a heartburn or you have to be careful. This is not the number to call. But if you have an emergency, do call us in time. We'll be there when we try to rescue you and save lives.
I think everybody should, as a precautionary measure, they should actually install that Rescue 112 mobile application.
Is very useful, because if you have that, you will be a priority, you will be given priority, you will know your exact location, and we'll be able to respond and save you in a match.
Right.
So yes,
sir.
We are there to rescue you, but I hope that you will not risk the lives.
Safety tips are taken basically, and I'm sure they are very beneficial.
So I'll just like to say one thing, that we are there to rescue you, but please don't risk your lives.
Right, sir. So basically, in essence, what you mean to say is that, you know, we need to be safe ourselves, and we need to ensure that the community is safe too. On which note, I would like to conclude today's segment. Thank you so much, Alia. Thank you so much, Annie. Thank you so much, Dr. Rizwan, and thank you so much, Sheikh Saab, for joining us here today. Well, to conclude this extremely interesting segment, all that I would want to say is that don't go anywhere, because we have a very interesting lineup of guests to follow after this short break. We'll be talking about Eid. We'll be talking about, how Eid is celebrated, why we need to have, inclusivity when we talk about Eid, why we need to support diversity when we talk about Eid. This and much more to follow after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back from the break. You're watching a special transmission of Eid al-Azha. Before the break, we were talking about the need to give back to the society on the occasion of Eid. And to carry this conversation further, we'll now be talking about the need for inclusivity and also the need for us to basically talk about diversity, rather practice it when we talk about the auspicious occasion of Eid. And to do that, I have a wonderful lineup of guests with me here today. Let me introduce you to my today's guests. My first guest in this regard is Tawseeq Dar Sahab, who is a musician alongside being a singer. Assalamu alaikum ji, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ji.
You're most welcome. My second panelist for the show today is Mehrunisa Sajjad, who is a human rights activist alongside being a lawyer. Assalamu alaikum ji, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. My third panelist here with me on the panel today is Muhammad Ali, who is a disability rights activist. Assalamu alaikum ji, and welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum assalam ji. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. And my fourth panelist for this second segment is Naveed Yaqoob Saab, who's a musician. Assalamu alaikum ji, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Now, to get the conversation started with you, sir, I think when we talk about Eid and when we talk about celebration, music, of course, is a very important part of it. So, as a musician, tell us about your journey into the music industry. How did it start? Was it something which was planned, or was it just, accidental?
It was not planned, I must say. I was into music since my childhood. Everyone says that, but I was into music. I was learning music, and but entry into the music industry was sort of, you can say it was an accident. I was singing at a wedding, and the producer of that movie heard me, and they said, why don't you come to the studio and audition for a movie? We are doing this movie. So I went to the audition, and they heard me. Shan was the director of that film. I started singing on the mic. That was my first time on the mic for a film.
Right.
So
and you had no idea that
I had
this
no
would
idea.
happen.
So the music director sang the 2 lines for me. I went onto the mic and I started singing, and Shan suddenly said, okay, you come out. And I was like, oh man, I've made some mistake. So I came out, and he said, you're going to sing these songs.
Oh
so that
God.
was my
so
entry
it
into
was
the
kind
industry.
of then accidental, although you always wanted to do it.
Yes.
But the way you got into it was accidental.
Yes.
And you've sung this very amazing song, which we all love, especially from the same movie, Mujhe Chand Chahiye. And it had that basically benefit of winning a lot of national as well as international awards. So tell us about that song, because when you win an award for a song, I believe you have a kind of a special sentimental attachment to it.
Of course it is. That song, Jaan Bhi De Do, I will sing it for you and for everyone.
Of course, we would love to hear
and
you
there's
sing
another
that.
song, Do Nain Tere, I will sing that too. But this particular song, it's very close to my heart. Not because it was the first song I sang for the movie, but the song itself, it's so melodious and so beautiful.
The
that
lyrics are so impactful.
Yes, it's been 20 plus years. I sang that, the music was recorded back in 1999.
Right.
It's 21 years now. So when I look back, and even now, when at times when we turn on the radio while driving, the song is still there.
Right.
So it's very close to everyone's heart because it's so good. The track, the whole of the track of the film was amazing. The music was
right,
really
and of course it got you so much recognition.
Yes.
Tell us about the attachment that you have with the song, because of course it was your first song, and anybody's first venture into anything of course has a very special attachment for them.
Yes, it is. I mean, the whole music is very special to me, but this particular song is very special in so many ways. This was my debut song, and this turned out to be the claim to fame for me.
Right.
It won me so many awards, including National Award, which is the most prestigious award of our film industry. Plus, the music was so special. Sajid Ali and Ronak Ali did the music, and the lyrics of this song are very special. Khwaja Parvez, very famous lyricist of Pakistan film industry, he wrote the lyrics of this song. So people still listen to this song.
Right, and I think it was just not one song. I remember there were 2-3
There were
soundtracks which were there
yes.
for quite some time.
For about 3 years, they were
Right.
with top charts.
I remember
Yes,
that, right.
alhamdulillah.
So let's have you sing that song.
जान भी दे दूं तू कहे ओ जाने जाना, जान भी दे दूं तू कहे ओ जाने जाना, तेरे बगैर जिंदगी, तेरे बगैर जिंदगी कुछ भी नहीं है माना, जान भी दे दूं तू कहे ओ जाने जाना। चेहरा तुम्हारा देख कर पागल सा हो गया सनम, चेहरा तुम्हारा से यूं महक उठे मेरी जिंदगी के रास्ते, लगता है तू जमीन पर उतरी है मेरे वास्ते, तू मेरी चाहत है, तू ही मेरी बंदगी है, जान भी दे दूं तू कहे ओ जाने जाना, ला 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 ला, तू कहे ओ जाने